Joe Zarzaur here with Dr. Malone. It's Monday, March the 23rd, and it's around 6:30. Downtown's pretty dead today. We've got some people working across the street for some office stuff that they're doing for us. But aside from that, there's a couple other things down the street that are open for takeout, restaurants, of course. I encourage you to support those. We bought some groceries from 10 Cal today. I actually bought a case of vegan burgers. In any event, the downtown's pretty quiet. We did actually take in a couple of cases today. There's wrecks still happening. More importantly, 2 of our staff members potentially got tested. They have not gotten their results yet, but I think that is a pretty good indication that symptoms are going around and people are aware of what's happening. No confirmed cases in the office yet, thankfully. Dr. Malone, what data did you discover today that would be interesting for the folks in Pensacola and surrounding?
Well, locally, as we had referred to last week, we're starting to see some of those tests that were outstanding or pending at the time come back. So we made a pretty quick jump in Escambia County from the 1 case we had basically the duration of last week to, as of right now, 9 cases that are confirmed positives. This is not the sum of all of the outstanding tests, though, so we're still waiting for that data to come in. I guess nationally or worldwide, they're saying about a 10 to 15% positive rate if appropriate screening is done leading up to those tests. So if these people are making it through the Q&A and then get to a test, 10% of those people are roughly coming back as positive. So I think when I last looked, this 9 people pretty much reflects that rate, because I think this is out of the 70 resulted tests that the state's reporting. So 9 out of 70 is, I guess, close to that rate. The stuff that I thought was interesting or should be shared or at least brought up is, again, locally, there's mention of what the bandwidth of the hospitals is as far as dealing with the acutely ill people. So of let's say the 9 confirmed positives, they're saying, again, applying national worldwide numbers, 80% of those people are going to have minimal or mild symptoms. 20% of those people may require some hospitalization of some sort. And of that 20%, about a quarter of those, which cuts down to 5%, may require ICU admission. So locally, in Escambia County, we have about 106 ICU beds. There is some flexibility there. These hospitals are talking about using some of the what you call PACU or pre-op or post-op rooms, converting them to ICUs. There are some other ways to convert some rooms in hospital settings to accommodate ICU needs. Along with that, all ventilators. So in the county, we're looking at about 150 ventilators that were reported. Again, some flexibility there where anesthesia machines can be used to serve as a ventilator. So just a real quick explanation for people. When you go for a procedure in a hospital, a surgical procedure, and you're intubated to be put to sleep under general anesthesia, you're actually on a ventilator, but it also has an anesthesia delivery component. So it's like a 2-in-1. And then when you're in an ICU and you're just on a ventilator, you're on the ventilator without the anesthesia component. So I think what we're going to see is some of these anesthesiologists that are basically out of work right now because there's no elective surgeries or anything like that going on. Well, there actually is plenty of work because these anesthesiologists are going to be charged with helping to train the staff to use the anesthesia machines for ventilatory purposes. These things can be used where they basically turn off the anesthesia delivery part, and they'll probably be included in some of the ICU care team, which in the past or on a more traditional role, their role in the ICU is somewhat limited, meaning they deal with the surgical patients and that's about it. So that was, I guess, interesting. And one thing that I see a lot is there's this concern about, is there enough ventilators? And I think that's the big impetus as far as trying to flatten the curve so that the demand is not all at once. One thing that's important to remember is, unlike masks or some of these surgical gloves and gowns, some of these infrastructure items like ICU rooms and ventilators, they can be reused. So the idea is that if someone's ill enough to require a ventilator and they're on it for a week or however long it may be, it's there for the next patient. It's not a throwaway item. So when you look at these numbers, like, oh my gosh, we only have 150 ventilators in the county, you know, how many times are you going to use it over and over? So I think its use is perennial, so to speak.
If somebody's going to heal up from this,
Yeah.
how long are they on the vent?
Well, basically the sick people that are sick enough to be in the hospital are looking at about a 3 to 6 week recovery period, which means to treat them through their illness. And that's, again, applying some of the numbers that we have from the European models as well as Chinese models, locally, I guess in the US rather. No, and we don't have enough data in the U.S. I think to say, hey, they're going to be on the ventilator for 3 days and then off the ventilator. I think there's such a broad range and so many other factors included in, you know, how someone tolerates it. But you would like to think that if someone requires a ventilator, that they're not on it for a period of weeks or anything like that.
Are they going to heal up or are they going to pass away? I mean, there's not a lot of stuff there, right? You're going to start breathing.
Yeah, we don't have that data yet. You know, ex post facto, when all this is said and done, we'll look back and say, wow, like these people that require the ventilator, here was the average length of or duration of days that they're in the ICU versus on the ventilator versus recovering before they went home. So it's not 6 weeks of ventilator use. I don't think we're looking at, but again, that is yet to show itself. So that was some of the important stuff that I brought up there. And then one other thing that, and this is, I guess, and I searched everywhere I could, and some people that are following along and checking at home, two things I would urge. One is don't check too many times during the day. It really gets in your head. So I've been trying to limit myself to checking like once or twice a day at the numbers, and I've actually been writing them down every day. So it's my version of kind of tracking things. So I just look at the national and the state numbers and county numbers. But along those same lines, one thing that we haven't seen yet is if you look at like the Johns Hopkins portal, there's not a whole lot of reported recovered cases yet. So of the 43,000 positive cases in the United States, it only lists 178 recovered. And I don't think that that's accurate. And I was trying to find some documentation of that. My guess is that the force feeding on the diagnosis end is kind of limiting, you know, monitoring these people to recovery. So do you waste tests on the people that are recovering to confirm they're recovered, or do you want to get the people that are still acutely ill? So that'll be just an interesting thing when those numbers do catch up to see who's recovered, because there's no way that we still have 43,000 sick people.
Right. Okay. The only one number I wanted to pass along, I just heard it in the briefing that the White House was giving. The female doctor was speaking, and she said, I know there's a lot of people worried about young people possibly getting this because there's some indication that young people do get this on occasion. But she reiterated that the mortality rate for anybody under 50 was less than 1%. So even though young people can get it, and even though young people can get sick, and she was using the numbers from overseas, all the numbers from China and Italy and Spain, all those combined gave her this figure of less than 1% mortality rate for people under 50 and under. So I thought that was encouraging. She did caveat that to say, unless there was pre-existing issues.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what your age. If you have bad lungs or a bad immune system, no matter your age, the age is off the table. Correct. Yeah, and I agree with that. And I heard the same exact thing. And that is, I agree, a good indicator.
Okay.
And then
anecdotally, just based on how long it's taking the local people to get test results back, apparently, and again, anecdotally, there's all these people around town that I know that either have tested positive or are waiting on results and are in a high risk group because they were interacting with somebody from out of town. I think this week, and I agree with what the Surgeon General said this morning, I think this week is a reckoning week for the country. I think this week is going to be like, it's either going to shock everybody and freak us out, or it's going to be encouraging that the numbers are sort of flatlining, or they're not as bad as everybody thinks they're going to. I tend to think it's going to be a little worse this week from a number standpoint than not, but hopefully I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, and in speaking with some of the people I interact with daily, something that popped in my head, and I have no idea what brought it up, but I equated these test results that are coming in from a week ago. People are going to respond by picking their outfit based on last week's weather. They're going to, picking their outfit based on last week's weather, and they're going to be that responsive to it. And I think it could potentially swing to the direction of, wow, like this is serious stuff, and we really do need to practice the social distancing and all that. But again, it's based on last week's weather. It'd be nice to have it more real time.
Right. All right. Well, the office is doing it. We're social distancing completely, save for Michelle and I. And Ashley was here part of the day, but we're fully functional, dealing with clients. I don't think the clients have even noticed anything different, to be honest with you, other than maybe an extra ring on the phone as it forwards to their local, to their house, their home office. But we're here for you. If you need us on the web at ZarzaurLaw.com, 855-HIRE-JOE. If you have questions for Dr. Malone or I, you can always email those to info@Zarzaur Law. You can hit us up on Facebook or Instagram, wherever we put this video. I think we'll put it in both places. So we're happy to answer those questions. Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Thanks, guys.